I always bring product with me.
The name of our panel here is The Path to the Digital Future, and here to take us down that path is the president of Hearst Magazines, David Carey. And I would think the big question right now in a lot of people's minds is what's going on with mobile? Is it destroying the business? How can magazines possibly adapt? And I would bet you have a good answer to that question.
I'm glad that wasn't a statement and a question. I guess it depends how you define mobile. If you define mobile as tablets, in terms of iPads and Kindles and Nooks and what you can access via Google Play, it's a huge opportunity for the magazine business. Here within our world at Hearst, just in the United States, we have almost 800,000 paying subscribers right now to mobile devices. And what's great about this is not only is the experience a good one for consumers, it appears that 80% of that 800,000 are new to the brands, and the balance is a mix of both current subscribers as well as recent ex-buyers. And so it's a whole new channel for us to bring in new individuals. And so the tablet business is also important because all of you, those of you who subscribe to ink on paper versions of our titles, the subscription renewal process is an arduous one. We send you 7 direct mail pieces. You have to, ultimately send a check back. There's a lot of friction in that process. All of the mobile subscriptions are continuous service. People ideally will have a great lifetime value. Smartphones potentially are our friend and our foe, and I think that's true for almost every industry today. I think that the smartphone penetration is as disruptive as broadband was, a dozen years ago. And we find ways that it can help us. If you get the December issue of Esquire, we have a very exciting test with a company called NetPage, and where every page in the publication, once you download the NetPage app, you can hover over the page, and it instantly gives you a clip of that page that you can share and that you can save. There's basically a digital twin of every page, advertising editorial. It's almost like Shazam. You only have to hear that little snippet and they know the song. And this is going to allow consumers who often have their smartphones right nearby the print products to engage and to activate the content in new ways.
It's sort of the equivalent of sending a link to somebody, right?
It is, but it's effortless.
Yeah.
You look at it, in 1 second it shows up, and then you can send it off. Or you can save it for yourself and build your own clip library. The downside, I think, of mobile for the magazine industry that we have to get our arms around is next time you're in a grocery store or a drugstore, watch people in line and watch what used to be through the checkout channel, and they'd be looking at magazines or they'd be looking to buy beef jerky or Slim Jims or something now. And 80% of the people are glued to the devices. People have now been hardwired that if you are in a stationary position, you've got to do something else. And so we have to find our way around that. Within Hearst, we are starting to build more special displays of our products within the first 100 feet of the store when you're pushing a cart, because potentially you're not on your smartphone while you're pushing a cart, although some people might try that. And then also to find clever ways, if you're in line, to have people interact with their phones and our covers. And so when it comes to the retail environment, it is a mobile world and we just live in it.
But you're also a big believer in print. You're not one of those people who believes that everything is going to go digital in a few years. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, there's no question that, and I guess we're in the time center in the newspaper industry, which does a very good job often of writing its own obit. Every bit of coverage about the industry is so negative. And people roll the magazine industry into that incorrectly so. And so in terms of magazine audience levels and magazine readership, it's actually been flat for the last 5 years. Young people do read magazines. I have 4 children. My daughters love fashion and beauty and style publications. And we are launching new ones. In 2009, when the darkest day potentially of the economy, we created Food Network magazine. Hopefully you've seen it. It's a fantastic product. It's a partnership with Scripps. 3 years later, it has 1.5 million circulation. It's #1 in the category in ad pages. It's #1 in newsstand sales at over 400,000 per month. We decided to take another shot at it this year, a second partnership with Scripps. We created HGTV magazine. We published 6 issues. We have 1 million paid circulation after 6 issues. And so it shows you that just like in film and books and every other creative form imaginable, there is a demand for new magazine product as well. And we're going to continue on this path of continuing to bring out new products. In China, we now publish L twice a month in China. The demand was so strong. And we launched 10 new international editions last year. And so what you'll find over time for the industry is you'll create new products, some other products may die off. That's all fine. It's all part of the evolutionary nature of a creative medium.
But someone might argue that, sure, that's great. A lot of people are still buying magazines, but the people who are buying them are getting older, and the younger people, are going completely digital. What do you say to that argument?
I would say that's not true at all for young women, especially. And because the fashion and beauty magazines, there's no question, those are very strong, and they show no cracks at all in either the advertising or the circulation businesses. For products that have a news element to them, those are challenged, right? If the web can do it better, it will. I was the founding publisher of Smart Money back in 1993. And so just to show you how times have changed. And so if we published an issue that came out today, December 1st, and it referenced the stock and a stock price quote, it might have said stock closing as of October 28th, because that's when that page was shipped. It's like an SNL skit. You can never do that today.
Right.
And so that, Smart Money, which is now digital only, is an example where the web kind of took its reason for being. But in terms of, glossy, high design, high tactile monthly magazines, the business that we're ultimately in is we're in the aspiration business. These are magazines. We live in an aspirational society for people who want to look fashionably, who in terms of latest beauty products, in terms of homes, in terms of beautiful gardens. And magazines are really and will always remain the preferred medium for inspiring those dreams.
Well, what is it about the print version of it that, why not have an aspirational magazine, but you only experience on your tablet? Why does it have to be in print?
Well, it doesn't have to be, but in terms of there's still the experience, and this also applies to kids, is when you pick up, this is L China, and you pick this up, it has a different feel. And what we love about the iPad is everything about it, because of the backlit screen and the quality of the Retina display, it is so good. But in the current form, in terms of these glossy, aspirational views of the world, they work great in print. And if you think of what is TV good at, TV has sight and sound and great emotion. Digital, especially your tablet. I mean, a smartphone brings the whole world to you, and the magazines transport you to a different place.
Is it an analogy sort of like movies? When TV came along, everyone thought that movies were over, but movies still had this niche because it was a different experience. Is that sort of analogous to what?
It is. I would say, though, that at the same time, the other feature, and who knows how long this will continue, is that the amount of time that people spend with media every day continues to grow. I think it was 602 minutes 3 years ago. It's 690 minutes today. And that double counts. And that's, if you're watching TV and reading a magazine, or as my children do, they're watching TV on their laptop. They might be reading a magazine and they're on their phone at the same time. And so people are multitasking to a level that we've never quite seen before. That's great in that all of the products find room. I guess the challenge is you're competing for shorter and shorter attention spans. And so you have to be pretty good to capture people's attention.
And what about the argument of apps versus the web? On mobile, how do you think people are going to be experienced? You mentioned tablets. Is that the primary vehicle? Or I know that, for instance, you guys had a lab for developing apps. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we created the Hearst App Lab now about 18 months ago. It's this fantastic facility in the Hearst Tower. And we did so for two reasons. One is, for the first generation of magazine apps that came out, one of the big questions we had is, do consumers expect a whole new iteration of the product with interactivity in every page and lots of video and games, or do they simply want the magazine but in a very mobile fashion? And that's been a big part of our research, because we had, across our 20 products in our portfolio, we had super enhanced editions, and then we had straight replica editions. And so it feels like the desire is more towards mobility, that I think the industry overshot the interactivity early on. It's almost like director's cuts. On the one hand, it's kind of great when you get it, but you don't need to see the ending from 5 different camera angles, and most people just want the product itself. Ditto for the book industry, which had a lot of enhanced books early on, and they gravitated back to just the book in a very mobile way. So it's more replica with some enhancement, but not the level that we did before. We learned a great amount about the consumer engagement around these devices. And so if you think of the business models of our business and the strengths and potentially weaknesses of each one, so the tablet business with apps is really a consumer revenue business, the subscription business, and ideally with highly annuitized, very stable consumer revenues and a bit of advertising. The free web in terms of desktop is really all advertising revenue, and the mobile, of course, is all advertising revenue, but harder to monetize on the small screen. So obviously we are present in each area, and so we're leaning on the consumer revenue first and foremost in terms of the apps, and that's a much better business for us overall.
You worked on Portfolio, which is a very ambitious magazine that launched a few years ago. I'm wondering if you think anything like that will ever happen again, and relatedly, if in the magazine industry, if it's artistically its best days are behind it, things like that are just not going to happen anymore. That sort of
anything
ambition.
like that in terms of spending that much money that quickly?
Just that ambition, if saying we're gonna have a new title and it's going to be really big.
It'll definitely happen again, but I think it'll happen again in a different form. And now you're finding the launches, or slingshot launches, if you will, that often use a brand in another place to drive a big launch. And so one of the big successes in the industry in the last few years has been People Style Watch. It's really been a huge success. It's a debatable question. If it didn't have the People name and it was called Style Watch, would it have been as much a success? So it took the borrowed interest of People and applied it. Ditto to what we've done for many years. Of course, I worked on the launch of Smart Money, as I mentioned, and it borrowed the Dow Jones equity in terms of that joint venture. And the recent successes we had with Food Network and HGTV showed the ability to take something that lives in a different space and apply it to magazines with great success. And what's great about Hearst is because we're known to be such great partners. Of course, we often have, we have lots of JVs, including one with Oprah and others, is we get a lot of inbound interest. We get lots of folks who knock on our door who have great brands or great personalities and who want to create these products. The story that I share with my staff sometimes is that when I first got my job at the magazine company, I had a fax that came to me. It was on KISS Productions letterhead. Dear David, I read of your new job in the New York Times. Congratulations. I have an idea. May I come see you? Signed, Gene Simmons. And I thought it was my friend Howard from high school totally making fun of me. Okay? And so we vetted the note. It turned out to be from the Gene Simmons. We set up a conference call. That fantastic voice, coming through the speakerphone. And Gene pitching me on, he's not a person, he's a media brand. And I think I was reluctant to have that be the first big project I took to the board of directors of Hearst. It's my friend Gene, although I got to tell you, it was my dream as a 16-year-old to do business with Gene Simmons. But we have a lot of inbound queries of fantastic brands who want to create new print products. And I wouldn't be surprised if, next year sometime we do another test, And we're really lucky that the people who come see us, have really great ideas, really great resources. And we've now had 2 very positive experiences in a row with Scripps, and that will continue for us and for others.
I'm actually surprised there isn't a KISS magazine. There's a KISS Coffin. There's all kinds of
I think that's what he wanted to create, but that was maybe a little off our strategy.
Okay. You mentioned that a lot of the readers who come to the tablet are new. How do they find out about it? What's the vehicle of discovery these days? Yeah,
so that's a challenge. And so right now it's all been organic. And we have to rely a great deal on promotion from the storefronts. And so when you go on the iTunes homepage, I guess they launched the new iTunes last night. I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, iTunes a lot.
And you go to the newsstand, if you get in the upper carousel, you're going to sell a lot of product. And if you're someplace on that page, you're going to do okay. If you're nowhere on that page, you're not going to do as well. And that's true across the other storefronts. So we have storefront relations people who work very closely with them. I do believe we get the very best promotional display of any of the major publishers. But as a practice for the industry, we now have to develop the right tools that we can use to use our marketing skills to grow. So, for example, Cosmopolitan is the #1 magazine in the world with tablet subscriptions, 141,000. And so we don't have the right answer. If we wanted to take that to 250,000 and do so within 6 months, how much would it cost, what sort of investment would we have to make. And I don't think we've perfected that piece of it, but that's the story for next year, is to use our traditional marketing techniques and strategies to be able to drive digital circulation.
What about social media, Facebook?
Yeah, it's also very important. And so, Facebook is, of course, and Twitter, are huge sources of referrals back, not only to our free web products, but also to encourage people to buy the tablet products. And Harper's Bazaar is the #1 magazine in the world on Pinterest, with over 5 million people following it there. And so social media is a very important way, of course, that we get the word out.
What about Pinterest, since you bring it up? It seems like they take a lot of what's in these aspirational magazines and sort of take the guts out of it. And do you see that as a challenge at all, or does it actually help the business?
I think it's all good for us. Pinterest, if you think of a lot of, in terms of the key, social media plays, often among kind of young people living south of Market, if you will, we're the first generation. Pinterest started with a 40-year-old woman in the middle of the country. And for our particular company with brands like Good Housekeeping, Redbook, and others, that was a pretty good place to be in for us. And so the whole scrapbooking notion is very synced with what we do. And so we don't see any of this to be competitive. We see it all complementary. And we like to be in early in all these platforms. It kills us if something starts to gain steam and we're not there. Pinterest was a great example. 3 months before it kind of really broke out, no one had ever heard of it, at least not us. And then, of course, it was every place. And we look forward to whatever the next, iteration will be of that.
Are there other titles out there, other magazine publications out there that are doing interesting things right now that you want to call out? Or, I know people don't talk about their competitors, but is anything you've seen the last year or so that you think is really interesting?
Well, there's a lot of innovation happening across the digital space. I think that, across the magazine industry, there's a lot of important but still nascent efforts around e-commerce. We just recently launched shopbazaar.com, which is a chance to take all those great editorial recommendations you see in Harper's Bazaar, and we have a partnership with Saks and to be able to buy directly. And so that's the next big piece. We had a partnership with JCPenney for a couple of those businesses. I don't think we've yet to really achieve scale with them, but we've learned a great deal, and we're doing those experiments as others are. But Cosmopolitan, again, is because it's our global flagship brand, is probably our best example in terms of our ability to flex our muscles in all areas. First of all, Cosmo in its print edition has 65 international editions, including Mongolia, which is true. There's a Mongolian Cosmo, which Stephen Colbert had a great send-up of when it launched. That was just fantastic. Even in the U.S., we just launched, it's going to be 4 times next year, Cosmopolitan for Latinas, English language version of the magazine. So even in the U.S. now, we have a second Cosmo print product. I mentioned Cosmo Tablet. Cosmo is #2 in terms of on Facebook, in terms of that connectivity. And so Cosmo is the place we get to go to first. And with Cosmo right now, we've just doubled, if not more, the size of the editorial team producing digital content. We have about 9 million monthly uniques right now in terms of Cosmo. We want to get to 20 million by the end of next year, and do so through a really robust expansion of content. And so that's an example where we want Cosmo to be #1 in every expression, both print and digital.
And this idea of a magazine being not just providing advertising, but providing a way for people to buy the products, do you see that as the way things are going, or is it too early to tell at this point?
Well, it's definitely the way things are going, and for all the right reasons. Even setting aside the fact that the publishers get a chance to make money through a revenue share, it's a convenience. It's a great convenience for the readers. And so when you see something advertised in the pages, the editors put all that effort in because they want people to buy the item, to buy the shoe, to buy the dress, to buy the item for the kitchen. And so what you're going to see is e-commerce layers are going to come to the various tablet forms. And so imagine on Amazon and Kindle, they know who you are because that's the nature. The Kindle shows up with your credit card information fully loaded, that you can see something and touch to buy it. And that'll be the next piece of it. That'll be frictionless e-commerce off the editorial recommendations. And I guess at one point there was maybe an ethical debate if that was right or wrong. Should we profit from editorial recommendations? Well, our goal is to have people buy them. And so should they buy them from others, or should we participate in that? And the good news is I think those sort of orthodoxies have been set aside.
Right.
Really, because it's a real service to the reader.
Okay, I think one last question. So in your view, are news-focused magazines, is it the only way for them is to go all digital in the future, or would you say?
I don't know if all digital, but the news business, boy, even in the newspaper form, right? The News Weekly business is famously challenged in the recent news around what Newsweek is trying to do, which is I think, a very important experiment for the industry. Everyone's looking at them and wishing them success, because some of our businesses in the future should be, we can create new product. We're creating new print products, but can we create new tablet-only products? And that'll be an important thing. But the news business, they've all pulled back from even saying they're reporting news and they're providing commentary. And that's a different transition. People look to them for the news piece. And, if you think about the evolution of our own company, there was a time, if you went back 30 years ago, that Hearst's core business were consumer magazines, but afternoon newspapers. Talk about a quaint notion. You get home and there's a newspaper at 4:30 on your doorstep. And so the news business is incredibly difficult. I'm very happy I'm not in it.
Okay. Well, thanks for your time this morning.
Great.
For walking us through this.
Thank you, everyone.